Welcome to my channel. I am Ben, the business analyst expert. In this video, we'll be covering the basic concept of business analysis. If you're looking to become a business analyst, this will be a good place to start. For more hands-on experience with real-life scenarios, I would recommend you visit sfbatraining.com. With that being said, in this course, we're going to cover the following concepts. The role and importance of business analyst. What is business analyst? What are the business analyst phases? What is the role of business analyst? What are the business analysis techniques? Then we're going to cover the software development methodologies, waterfall model, agile, the types of requirements, business requirements, user requirements, system requirements, the requirement gathering techniques such as interviews, document analysis, brainstorming, requirements workshop, joint application development, prototyping, storyboards, the different diagrams created by the business analyst, use case diagram, state chart diagram, activity diagram, sequence diagrams, collaboration diagram, the different documents created by business analyst, business requirements documents, BRD, use case document, text case document. These are pretty much what we'll be covering in this course. So, what is business analysis? Business analysis refers to the process of firstly identifying the needs of the business and then developing and implementing the solutions to meet them. Business analysis is taking the big picture and breaking it into smaller parts, making it easier to ensure that company resources are being utilized in the most efficient manner. Business analysis focuses on goals. It can be implemented to both set goals and to achieve them. These goals will cover strategic business practices encompassing IT, business processes, corporate policies, structure, and trading strategies across the entire enterprise. Business analysis is a process of identifying, gathering, analyzing, documenting, and managing the requirements within a business process. What are the business analysis phases? Phase 1. Why? This phase is purely about fact-finding. Normally, this will involve the formulation of a feasibility study to examine the business case put forward for changes. Phase 2. Work. In this phase, the business analyst will develop a project or requirements plan which will need to be agreed with all stakeholders and then implemented. Phase 3. Working. This is the final phase, where any changes implemented need to be proven as working. Additionally, at this phase, the business analyst needs to confirm that all requirements have been met. What is the role and importance of a business analyst? Business analysts have been the ones tasked with developing business cases for IT application development. In the process, smoothing relations among competing parties and moving projects along. Most successful BAs are the ones who could communicate, facilitate, and analyze. Some tilt more toward business functions such as operations, marketing, finance, or engineering. Others seem to fit better in more IT-orientated positions, such as in applications and architecture groups, or in project management offices. They are key to making dynamic business applications a reality by both accelerating the speed at which business applications can be changed and assuring the engagement of the business customer in these changes. What are the techniques used by the business analysis? MOST. The MOST technique is an internal analysis. It contains 4 attributes: mission, where the business intends to go; objectives, the key goals that will help achieve mission; strategies, the different options for moving forward; tactics, how the different strategies are put into action. PESTLE. The PESTLE technique is an external analysis designed to examine the many different external elements affecting a business and its operations. It includes 6 attributes: political, current and future political influences; economic, the local, national, and world economy impact; sociological, different ways society can affect an organization; technological, the effect of new and emerging technology; legal, the effect of national and world legislation; environmental, local, national, and world environmental issues. CATWO. CATWO is a technique used to encourage critical thinking about what the business is trying to achieve. There are 6 different elements included in this technique. Customers. Who benefits from the highest level business process and how does the issue affect them? Actors. Who is involved in the situation? Who is implementing solutions? What will impact their success? Transformation process. What processes or systems are affected by the issue? Worldview. What is the big picture and what are the wider impacts of the issue? Owner. Who owns the process or situations being investigated and what is their role in the solution? Environmental constraints. What are the limitations that will impact the solution and its success? SWOT. SWOT analysis is used to give a more complete overview of both internal and external factors affecting a business. There are 4 attributes to SWOT. Strengths: examine advantages and what is done well within the company. Weaknesses: examine the disadvantages and areas that need improvement. Opportunities: examine opportunities for improvement in all areas, including market share. Threats: examine the obstacles the business faces in accomplishing their goals. SWOT analysis provides information helpful in matching the firm's resources and capabilities to the competitive environment in which it operates. Strengths and weaknesses are often internal to your organization, while opportunities and threats generally relate to external factors. Here is a sample SWOT analysis of a typical startup social media strategy. Now let's talk about the most popular software development methodologies: waterfall and agile. Waterfall model. The model develops systematically from one phase to another in a downward fashion, like a waterfall. It has been structured on multiple phases to help out these software construction companies to develop an organized system of construction. Once final point is reached, you cannot turn back, similar to the water in a waterfall. Here is a graphical representation of the waterfall model. Waterfall model advantages. The product requires the fulfillment of one phase before proceeding to the next. Therefore, fault in SW will be detected during one of the initial phases and will be sealed off for correction. A lot of emphasis is laid on paperwork. It is easier for new employee to carry out the work from where it had been left. The waterfall method is also well known amongst the software developers, therefore it is easy to use. It is easier to develop various software through this method in a short span of time. Waterfall model disadvantages. Doesn't work well in projects that did not have well-defined requirements, as we might have to start all over again, and it might not be cost-effective. Huge amount of time is wasted, as we cannot start one phase unless the previous phase has been successfully completed. Testing period comes quite late in the development process, unlike other approaches where it is a lot sooner, thus saving lots of time and money. It takes a lot of effort and time to do documentation, which is why it is not suitable for smaller projects. Another software development methodology is Agile. Agile software development is a style of software development that emphasizes customer satisfaction through continuous delivery of functional software. Agile is iterative. Entire application is distributed in incremental units called an iteration. Development time of each iteration is small, a couple of weeks, fixed and strictly adhered to. Every iteration is a mini increment of the functionality and is built on top of previous iteration. Active customer involvement. There's a lot of client involvement and face-to-face interaction. Every iteration is tested and approved by client. The feedback obtained is implemented in subsequent iterations, thus minimizing risk and ensuring higher client satisfaction. Agile is feature-driven. More emphasis is on providing the required features in the application. 80-20 principles apply to decide the 20% features which would be used 80% of the time. Priority-based delivery. Features are prioritized depending on customer need, development risk, etc. High-priority features are developed first. After every iteration, the project prioritizes are reevaluated. Agile is people-centric. More emphasis is on using the adequately skilled people to do the development than on following the processes. The documentation and other non-development activities are minimized and more time is devoted to development and testing. The most widely used methodologies based on the Agile philosophy are XP and Scrum. These differ in particulars but share the iterative approach. What is XP? XP stands for Extreme Programming. It concentrates on the development rather than managerial aspects of software projects. Here is a graphical representation of XP model. XP rules. Integrate often. Development teams must integrate changes into the development baseline at least once a day. This concept is also called continuous integration. Project velocity. Velocity is a measure of how much work is getting done on the project. This important metric drives release planning and schedule updates. Pair programming. All code for a production release is created by 2 people working together at a single computer. XP proposes that 2 codes working together will satisfy user stories at the same rate as 2 coders working alone, but with much higher quality. User story. A user story describes problems to be solved by the system being built. These stories must be written by the user and should be about 3 sentences long. User stories do not describe a solution, use technical language, or contain traditional requirements such as shall statements. Instead, a sample user story must go like this. Search for customers. The user tells the application to search for customers. The application asks the user to specify which customers. After the user specifies the search criteria, the application returns a list of customers meeting those criteria. What is Scrum? Scrum methodology includes both managerial and development processes. Scrum management. After the team completes the project scope and high-level designs, it divides the development process into a series of short iterations called sprints. Before each sprint, the team members identify the backlog items for the sprint. At the end of a sprint, the team reviews the sprint to articulate lessons learned and check progress. When enough of the backlog has been implemented so that the end users believe the release is worth putting into production, management closes development. The team then performs integration testing, training, and documentation as necessary for product release. Scrum development. Before each sprint begins, the team plans the sprint, identifying the backlog items and assigning teams to these items. Teams develop, wrap, review, and adjust each of the backlog items. During development, the team determines the changes necessary to implement a backlog item. The team then writes the code, tests it, and documents the changes. During wrap, the team creates the executable necessary to demonstrate the changes. In review, the team demonstrates the new features, adds new backlog items, and assesses risk. Finally, the team consolidates data from the review to update the changes as necessary. Here is a graphical representation of Agile Scrum model. Now let's talk about a few terminologies used in Agile methodology. Burn down chart. This chart, updated every day, shows the work remaining within the sprint. The burn down chart is used both to track sprint progress and to determine which items must be removed from the sprint backlog and deferred to the next sprint. Product backlog. Product backlog is a complete list of requirements, including bugs, enhancement requests, and usability and performance improvements. They are not currently in the product release. Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is the person responsible for managing the Scrum project. Sometimes it refers to a person who has become certified as a Scrum Master by taking Scrum Master training. Sprint Backlog. Sprint backlog is a list of backlog items assigned to a sprint, but not yet completed. In common practice, no sprint backlog item should take more than 2 days to complete. The sprint backlog helps the team predict the level of effort required to complete a sprint. What are the different types of requirements? We have 3 types of requirements: business requirements, user requirements, and system requirements. And system requirements include functional and non-functional requirements. Business requirements. The business requirement is written from the sponsor's point of view. It defines the objective of the project, goal, and the measurable business benefit for doing the project. The following sentence format is used to represent the business requirement and helps to increase consistency across project definitions. The purpose of the project name is to project goal. That is, what is the team expected to implement or deliver, so that measurable business benefits the sponsor's goal. User requirements. The user requirements are written from the user's point of view. User requirements define the information or material that is input into the business process, and the expected information or material as outcome from interacting with the business process system, specific to accomplish the user's business goal. The following sentence format is used to represent the user requirement. The user role shall describe the interaction, inputs and outputs of information or materials with the system to satisfy the user's business goal, or the user role shall provide input, receive, output. Functional requirements. The functional requirements define what the system must do to process the user inputs, information or material, and provide the user with their desired outputs, information or material. Processing the inputs includes storing the inputs for use in calculations or for retrieve by the user at a later time, editing the inputs to ensure accuracy, proper handling of erroneous inputs, and using the inputs to perform calculations necessary for providing expected outputs. The following sentence format is used to represent the functional requirement. The specific system domain shall describe what the system does to process the user inputs and provide the expected user outputs, or the specific system domain business process shall do when event condition. Non-functional requirements. The non-functional requirements define the attributes of the user in the system environment. Non-functional requirements identify standards, for example, business rules that the system must conform to, and attributes that refine the system's functionality regarding use. Because of the standards and attributes that must be applied, non-functional requirements often appear to be limitations for designing an optimal solution. Non-functional requirements are also at the system level in the requirements hierarchy and follow a similar sentence format for representation as the functional requirements. The specific system domain shall describe the standards or attributes that the system must conform to. Now let's talk about the different requirement gathering techniques. One-on-one interview. The most common technique for gathering requirements is to sit down with the clients and ask them what they need. The discussion should be planned out ahead of time based on the type of requirements you're looking for. Generally, you want to ask open-ended questions to get the interviewee to start talking, and then ask probing questions to uncover requirements. Group interviews. Group interviews are similar to the one-on-one interview, except that more than one person is being interviewed, usually 2 to 4. These interviews work well when everyone is at the same level or has the same role. Group interviews require more preparation and more formality to get the information you want from all the participants. You can uncover a richer set of requirements in a shorter period of time if you can keep the group focused. Document analysis. All effective requirements elicitation involves some level of document analysis such as business plans, market studies, contracts, requests for proposals, statements of work, existing guidelines, analysis of existing systems, and procedures. When you first start a project or join an existing one, analyzing existing documentation is a great way to familiarize yourself with how the business currently functions. This is especially important when the subject matter experts are too busy to dedicate enough time to meet with you to describe the current process, or when experts have left the organization and all that is left is documentation. Reviewing the documentation will help you to understand the current situation and begin to formulate the questions to ask of stakeholders to gather additional requirements. If the project is enhancing an existing system or replacing it with a new one, it will be important to know which functionality of the existing solution the stakeholders want to carry over to the new one and which can be retired. While reviewing the existing documentation, it is important to jot down questions that arise that can be brought to the stakeholders. Brainstorming. Brainstorming is a short group session where everyone is allowed to say whatever they feel is important to the topic of discussion. After that, a facilitator leads the group in organizing and prioritizing the results. The following basic rules for brainstorming ensures better results. Start out by clearly stating the objective of the brainstorming session. Generate as many ideas as possible. Let your imagination soar. Do not allow criticism or debate while you are gathering information. Once information is gathered, reshape and combine ideas. Workshops. Workshops can rapidly pull together a good set of requirements. In 2 to 5 days, you can create a set of requirements and then review and improve them. Workshops are quicker and better at discovering requirements than other techniques, such as sending questionnaires. You're bringing the right collection of people together and getting them to correct and improve on their requirements document. A workshop is inherently expensive because of the number of people involved, but it saves a large amount of time. If you can define the product right the first time and cut 3 months off the requirements gathering, the savings could be enormous. The workshop has to be thoroughly organized to take advantage of people's time. Choose a quiet location for the workshop so that people are not disturbed by day-to-day business. Mobile phones should be discouraged. Arrange to take messages externally. Take advantage of informal interactions by choosing a site so that people don't go home at night or go out separately. Note that the workshop provides the environment in which to apply other requirement gathering techniques such as brainstorming. Here is graphical representation of a successful workshop. JAD session. JAD session is a facilitated workshop that shortens the duration of early IT project activities while delivering better results. Encourages out-of-box thinking. Creates consensus among stakeholders. Reduces required rework. Increases common understanding of results. The core component of JAD is a structured facilitated workshop that focuses on creating specified deliverables based on the group's input. Now let's talk about 2 types of JAD sessions, interactive and electronic. Interactive JAD session. iJAD adds a top-notch session analyst who creates the deliverables visible to all participants during the session. Since the final deliverable is created and critiqued immediately by all project stakeholders, iJAD delivers the final result even faster than a conventional JAD, and with higher quality. Uninterrupted 2 to 10 working session. Input of each participant is captured in real time, involving results visible using LCD projector. Interim deliverables distributed on paper. Find deliverable reviewed immediately by all participants. Electronic JAD session, eJAD, uses current collaboration technology from simple email to advanced web application sharing to reduce the time needed to execute critical business analysis activities. Getting all stakeholders together via the internet is the next best thing to being there, and it saves travel costs, time, and associated risks. Interruptible 2 to 8 hour audience-specific work segments. Evolving results visible in shared application. Interim deliverables distributed electronically. Better access to information at your workspace. Lower overall session costs. Phases of a JAD session. 1. Pre-session planning. Evaluate the project. Create preliminary agenda. Determine deliverables for the working session. Enable participants to prepare for the session. Number 2. Pre-work. Gather information from colleagues. Clear schedules for the working session. Refine the session agenda. Finalize pre-session assignments. Number 3. Working session. Create the deliverables. Generate common understanding. Achieve consensus on decisions. Generate ownership of results. Identify open issues and questions. Create action items. Prototyping is another requirement gathering method. Prototypes are built early in the development life cycle and are used to provide valuable insight into the look, feel, and general workflow of an application. After you build an initial prototype, you should show it to the clients to validate the work done so far looks okay. You then use the prototype to gather additional requirements. Advantages of prototyping: reduced time and costs, improved and increased user involvement. Disadvantages of prototyping: insufficient analysis, user confusion of prototype and finished system, developer attachment to prototype, excessive development time of the prototype, expense of implementing prototyping. There are 2 types of prototyping. Complete a partial throwaway. If you build a prototype, you'll throw it away after the requirements have been gathered. Prototype does not have to be the start of the final solution. The main purpose is to gather requirements. You may leverage some of the physical components of the prototype as a starting point for the design and construct phases of the project. Iteratively develop into final application. If you're using an iterative development approach, the first prototype should still be put together quickly. Instead of the work being abandoned or thrown away, the prototype is updated with the new requirements. In the second pass, more business logic is also placed into the application. At this point, it's no longer called a prototype. Instead, the prototype shell is used as the basis for developing the final solution. The last requirement gathering technique we're going to cover are storyboards. Storyboards, also termed presentation scenarios, are sequences of images that show the relationship between user actions or inputs and system outputs. A typical storyboard will contain a number of images depicting features such as menus, dialog boxes, and windows. Storyboard sequences provide a platform for exploring and refining user requirement options via a static representation of the future system by showing them to potential users and members of a design team. Points to keep in mind while storyboarding: keep it simple. Keep the story simple. Do not make it complicated. Break the story into scenes. Breaking the story into scenes or sections will help you to organize the story better. It will also help you in identifying the shortcomings, if any, in the story. While making a storyboard, do the horizontal and vertical analysis of storyboard. That will ensure completeness of the story. Make it collaborative. The idea behind storyboarding is to make the complete picture clear. Then make sure that you have covered every aspect of the story. Involve your clients in the storyboarding session. Check the logic flow, necessary and sufficient arguments. Tell a good story. In the end, keep in mind to tell a good story. Here is a sample storyboard for a ticket purchase system. There are a few types of diagrams created by the business analyst. Use case diagram. A use case diagram is used to describe the behavior of the target system from an external point of view. Here are the components of a use case diagram. Actor. Models a type of role played by an entity that interacts with the subject. Example, by exchanging signals and data, but which is external to the subject. Actors may represent roles played by human users, external hardware, or other subjects. Note that an actor does not necessarily represent a specific physical entity, but merely a particular facet, i.e. role, of some entity that is relevant to the specification of its associated use cases. Association specifies a semantic relationship that can occur between typed instances. It has at least 2 ends represented by properties, each of which is connected to the type of the end. Dependency. It is a relationship that signifies that a single or a set of model elements requires other model elements for their specification or implementation. This means that the complete semantics of the depending elements is either semantically or structurally dependent on the definition of the supplier elements. Extend. This relationship specifies that the behavior of a use case may be extended by the behavior of another, usually supplementary, use case. The extension takes place at one or more specific extension points defined in the extended use case. Note, however, that the extended use case is defined independently of the extending use case and is meaningful independently of the extended use case. Note that the same extended use case can extend more than one use case. Furthermore, an extending use case may itself be extended. Include. It is a direct relationship between two use cases. Behavior of the included use case is inserted into the behavior of the including use case. The including use case may only depend on the result, value, of the included use case. This value is obtained as a result of the execution of the included use case. Use case. A use case is the specification of a set of actions performed by a system, which yields an observable result that is, typically, of value for one or more actors or other stakeholders of the system. Here is a sample use case diagram of a simple ATM machine system. Another type of diagram created by the BA is the state chart diagram. A state chart diagram describes different states of a component in a system. States are defined as a condition in which an object exists and it changes when some event is triggered. So the most important purpose of the state chart diagram is to model lifetime of an object from creation to termination. The following is an example of a state chart diagram where the state of order object is analyzed. Here is a sample state chart diagram. Activity diagram. Activity diagram is a special kind of state chart diagram. Activity diagram is basically a flow chart to represent the flow from one activity to another activity. The activity can be described as an operation of the system. Activity diagrams are not only used for visualizing dynamic nature of a system, but they also use to construct the executable system by using forward and reverse engineering techniques. It does not show any message flow from one activity to another. The diagram is used to model the activities which are nothing but business requirements. So the diagram has more impact on business understanding rather implementation details. Here's a sample activity diagram for email connection. Sequence diagram. The sequence diagram models the collaboration of objects based on a time sequence. It shows how the objects interact with others in a particular scenario of a use case. Sequence diagrams are used to explore the usage scenarios. A usage scenario is a description of a potential way your system is used. For example, a student enrolls in the university and then immediately enrolls in 3 seminars. Here is a sequence diagram template. Collaboration diagram. A collaboration diagram, also called as interaction diagram, is an illustration of the relationships and interactions among software objects. A collaboration diagram resembles a flowchart that portrays the roles, functionality, and behavior of individual objects as well as the overall operation of the system in real time. Objects are shown as rectangles with naming labels inside. These labels are preceded by colons and may be underlined. Relationships between the objects are shown as lines connecting the rectangles. Messages between objects are shown as arrows connecting the relevant rectangles, along with labels that define the message sequencing. Collaboration diagrams are best suited to the portrayal of simple interactions among relatively small number of objects. As the number of objects and messages grows, a collaboration diagram can become difficult to read. Here is a sample collaboration diagram. Now let's talk about all the documents created by Business Analyst. Business Requirements Document, BRD. When creating a requirements document, it is important to remove the passions, biases, and personal professional agendas of individuals. The object is to provide a clear, complete, and concise definition of requirements which forms the business agreement as defined in the project charter for sign-off by the project sponsor, the basis for all subsequent system analysis, design, and development work, the foundation for user acceptance testing and sign-off of the completed project. The requirement document should be written using easily understood business terminology. It should include structured tables and/or graphical models to illustrate key points such as transformational processes, system states and change between them, relationships between data elements, process and logic flow, object classes and the relationships between them, Requirements should be written hierarchically with a high-level requirements providing summary information, grouping the requirements into the overall structure. Detailed requirements that decompose high-level requirements, clearing up ambiguity and providing specific examples. Written so that if the requirements are satisfied, you will satisfy the user's needs. Prioritization of the requirements is critical. Prioritizing requirements can be done through the use of verbs that have explicitly defined meanings, such as shall or must, mandatory fulfillment for the project to be deemed a success. Will, similar to shall or must, but generally refers to activity in the real world versus internal system functionality. Should, a clear benefit-risk association, but not mandatory. May, a nice-to-have item with low or no quantifiable benefit, risk association. Here is a sample table content of a BRD. Use case document. The use case document is a business document which provides a story of how a system and its actors will be utilized to achieve a specific goal. An effective use case should provide a detailed step-by-step description of how the system will be used by its actors to achieve the planned outcome. The purpose of the use case is to tie the business needs of the system to the design parameters of the system to ensure that the completed system achieves the goals established by the business requirements. The level of detail in use cases may vary greatly depending on the size and complexity of the system being designed. This use case template provides you with everything you need to develop your use case document. Here is a sample use case document. Test case document. A test case is a set of test inputs, execution conditions, and expected results developed for a particular objective, such as to exercise a particular program path or to verify compliance with a specific requirement. Some test deliverables are provided before testing phase, some are provided during the testing phase, and some after the testing cycles is over. A test plan is a document describing the scope, approach, objectives, resources, and schedule of a software testing effort. It identifies the item to be tested, items not to be tested, who will do the testing, the test approach followed, what will be the pass-fail criteria, training needs for the team, the testing schedule, etc. This concludes our tutorial. Visit sfbatraining.com if you're looking to become a business analyst expert. Please subscribe to my channel if you have not done it yet, and don't forget to click the notification button. I hope you guys learned and enjoyed this video. Thank you, and have a great day.